Nekomata is a character whom I really enjoyed experiencing the story and characterization of in Zenless Zone Zero. A former member of the Red Fang gang whom looked up to their late leader, Miguel Silver, until she eventually left due to disagreements in how the gang was operating, eventually joining Nicole and the Cunning Hares following the events of Act 1, Chapter 1 of the story. As a playable unit, Nekomata is a standard S-rank physical attack agent that has somehow fallen to absolute rock bottom in terms of viability when compared to the rest of the roster, somehow being outperformed by even version 1 A-rank agents. Today, I want to go over her kit, what went wrong with it, and how I personally would go about improving her if given the opportunity. Before I start, I am aware that it's possible to clear with Nekomata if the player is good enough. However, hyper-investment and hyper-optimization of rotations is not something that many players attempt to do with characters whom are underperforming in the meta. Most would simply opt to toss them out or to not even build them in the first place. There's nothing wrong with someone not wanting to put their time and resources into a character that's not going to net them even close to the kind of performance they get had they just pulled for a limited 5-star character. Standard S-rank agents are still S-rank agents and should have the decency to at least be as viable as some of the better A-ranks and some of the earlier limited S-rank agents. With that said, time to break down this cat's playstyle. Under normal circumstances, I would just explain the character's kit and proceed with the problems the kit presents. However, with Nekomata, her issues crop up almost immediately as soon as you realize how little she has going for her. Simplicity to a fault, one might say. Nekomata's whole shtick is that she's meant to constantly perform dodge counters to maintain a rather high self-damage buff. Performing quick assists is also a means of applying the buff. As for her additional ability, triggering the assault attribute will buff her next EX special attack, capping out at 2 stacks. Aside from that, she's just about as basic as you can get, with the only other thing worth noting is that the final hit in her basic attack chain, or holding basic attack, will see her pass through an enemy, with a 33.33% chance of this attack repeating itself up to 3 times. Well, with such a bare bones kit, let's see if we can't find more through her W engine and the first couple mindscapes. Her signature W engine, Steel Cushion, provides physical damage bonus and an increase in damage when attacking from behind. Her Mindscape 1 ignores some enemy physical resistance when attacking from behind as well, and attacking stunned enemies are considered back attacks, which not only synergizes with her Mindscape 1, but her signature W engine. And as for her second Mindscape, Nekomata receives some energy generation when attacking a single enemy while being the active character. Not really anything of note for this one, despite being an earlier node for a character's Mindscape. Now, there's nothing wrong with having an overly simplistic kit. The problem comes in, however, when we further examine each of these kit's aspects. The first big issue we see with Nekomata's kit is an incredibly short buff up time. 6 seconds is just way too short of a buff time for Nekomata to maintain consistent damage output, and puts a great deal of importance on just how aggressive the enemy she fights is for her to get frequent enough dodge counters off. This is even more apparent when fighting stunned enemies, whom cannot attack and leave Nekomata with no means to get dodge counters off. Now, of course, there is the option of using quick assists to get Nekomata's buff as well, but we'll get to that in a moment. The second biggest issue is her EX special attack, and by extension, her additional ability, are just bad. Starting out with her additional ability, triggering 2 assaults to get the maximum damage output for her EX special attack is just too much to ask for. Nekomata is an attack agent, not an anomaly agent. Just on a basic chirping enemy, Nekomata needs roughly 3 entire basic attack chains to trigger 1 assault. And before anyone suggests to use EX special attacks to speed up the assault buildup, let me remind you that the whole point of triggering assaults in the first place is to buff the next EX special attack. What's the point of using up your EX special to then buffing EX special you won't have the remaining energy for? So most likely, you're going to stick to basic attacks. Compare this to the traditional anomaly agents. Piper can build up assault so insanely quickly after just a couple seconds of channeling her EX special attack, and will likely have a good chunk of physical buildup ready for the next assault once you stop attacking. And as for Jane Doe, you've procced Assault in either roughly one non-Passion State basic attack string, or just by using a single EX special attack. Once we even get into talking about the EX special attack itself, it has a massive problem with having so little forward momentum. I don't think it's a stretch to say that there have been a number of players whom frequently whiffed EX special attacks because Nekomata barely moves forward when performing the attack. Again, look at Jane Doe for how far you can travel with an EX special attack. The third issue I want to bring up is how underdeveloped her back attack playstyle is. The only real interesting idea explored in both her W engine and her Mindscape 1 is the damage potential when hitting an enemy from behind. However, actually being able to hit enemies from behind is so incredibly rare in ZZZ, and there's so little time to do so in most instances. The only way you'd be able to consistently hit an enemy from behind is if they're stunned, but by that point, Mindscape 1 already counts all stunned enemies as being hit from behind anyway, so this is a moot point. The last issue I want to bring up with Nekomata is her viable teammate options. So, to make the most of Nekomata's kit, we need teammates that deal physical damage to help her build up assault anomalies, and they need to have quick assist functionality to compensate for her low buff up time. As of right now in ZZZ, the only two that fit these criteria is Pulchra and Yuzuha. Unfortunately, even these two are not good picks for Nekomata. Pulchra is an aftershock-focused stun agent who can only trigger her aftershock attacks after an ally uses an EX special attack. And as I stated earlier, Nekomata having to potentially waste non-buffed EX special attacks completely leaves her out of an integral part of her kit. This leaves us with Yuzuha, the premier limited support agent meant for dedicated anomaly teams, that you're putting on your Nekomata team. I'm not explaining myself further, so let's explore the other possible teammates. The only other noteworthy teammates we're talking about are Nicole, Astra Yao, and Trigger. All of them make for solid teammate options, but once again, we run into the same opportunity cost with Astra Yao and Trigger. However, now, when referring to all three of them, none of these agents can help Nekomata to trigger assault anomalies, further locking her out of an integral part of her kit and lowering her overall DPS output. So, looks like we've got a lot of issues with this feisty cat thiren that we've got to somehow work into a viable unit. Thankfully, I've brainstormed several ideas that I believe all could work to make Nekomata a better unit. To start out with, I want to actually adjust Nekomata's playstyle to lean more into her back attacks seen in her W engine and Mindscape 1. To do this, I want to briefly look at another agent, Caesar King. Caesar has a unique mechanic where holding her basic attack will consume one assist point to perform a small area of effect attack that draws in smaller enemies, and is also one of the means she can apply a damage debuff to enemies found in her additional ability. I would like to give Nekomata something similar to promote back attacks. When Nekomata holds down her basic attack, she would consume one assist point, dash through the enemy, and enter Vital View for a short duration. Vital View is a unique slow time mechanic primarily achieved by performing an evasive assist with a ranged agent like Billy Kid, Grace Howard, or Zhu Yuan to name a few. While in Vital View, Nekomata will deal additional damage to enemies attacked from behind, a damage bonus that would be added to her base kit as there is none to begin with already. Nekomata's fast basic attacks would already allow her to get a lot of quick hits in over the duration of a Vital View, and since Nekomata can't acquire her buff through defensive assists, it's not like she's making use of assist points on any team of hers anyway. The next thing I would do to Nekomata is to condense the buff effect found in her additional ability, from 2 assault triggers to achieve maximum stacks, down to 1 assault trigger. I believe this to be the best course of action without rocking the boat that is the current anomaly meta, by lowering the assault procs required down to 1 instead of raising her assault buildup. It prevents any weird balancing situations where Nekomata could suddenly become an anomaly agent in disguise as an attack agent. The third thing I would do to Nekomata to fix her is to add an additional 2 seconds to her core passive. 6 seconds is just so little time, but I believe 8 seconds will be just fine. Of course, this is all a hypothetical. The time doesn't really matter. Just anything noticeably higher than 6 seconds will do. The last thing I would add to Nekomata might sound like a weird out-of-nowhere idea, but I want to include it to spice things up with her kit just a bit more. I would give Nekomata an additional passive effect where if she is hit at any point, she takes no damage, automatically dodges, and triggers Vital View with a 30 to 45 second cooldown. As a cat thiren, it's weird for the 9 lives feline character to not have any survivability in her kit. This would especially help as Nekomata's kit is designed around dodge counters, so having a safety net players can rely on occasionally could help with the character who's meant to be in the thick of it. So to quickly summarize, I would fix Nekomata by letting her consume assist points to trigger Vital View with back attack damage bonuses, reduce her additional ability cap to 1 assault trigger, increase her core passive duration, and give her 1 free hit every 30 to 45 seconds that triggers the aforementioned Vital View. You can steal all these if you would like, CCC team. I just fixed this F tier cat for you. You're welcome. It's important that we not forget that standard banner S ranks in Zenless Zone Zero need to act as a bridging of the gap between A rank agents and limited S rank agents, and should still be solid options for anyone to use should they lack certain characters for specific encounters and endgame content. Genshin Impact's roster of standard 5 stars did a great job of holding up in the meta for the first few years of the game's release with characters like Jean, Mona, Kaching, and Diluc. Honkai Star Rail, while it didn't last as long with its respective meta, still had some hard hitters with Himiko, Clara, and Bronya. Comparatively with Zenless Zone Zero, only Lycon has managed to stand the test of time, as we're only a little over a year into the game's lifecycle. And with the door open for discussion of character buffing following El and Joe, I believe all of the DPS-focused standard S-rank agents should all have a chance to be looked over with the potential to be made better as the meta of ZZZ continues to develop and evolve. And it all starts with the newest member of the Cunning Hares and what the ZZZ team can do for her. And with that, I have said all I really wanted to about Nekomata's kit and how I would fix it. Of course, when it comes to buffing characters, the possibility of adding completely new moves to a character's kit shouldn't be left out of the discussion. However, I wanted to focus on buff ideas I could more feasibly conceptualize that wouldn't take too much time to develop for older characters. Out of all the standard S-rank agents, Nekomata is definitely my favorite of the 6 as a character. And it pains me to see her have such an undercooked kit that pulls her in multiple different directions that just didn't work out for her in the end. The possibility of teammates coming out that would possibly synergize with her at some point is always something that can happen. However, I would just prefer the ZZZ team fix her to a point where she can work with the characters we have right now instead of waiting for some mysterious savior to prevent her from scraping the bottom of the barrel. But until then, this has been Arikado Zodan, and I'm clocking out.